Chapter 24. Monday evening. Mac stared at her. Are you really thinking your husband would try to kill you? Yes. Doreen nodded. He would. Half of his estate? That's probably $30 million. At that, Mac's own jaw dropped. She nodded. I told you that he's wealthy. So why didn't he just give you enough money to live on? Because he doesn't like to share, she said. And that includes sharing even a little bit. Mac returned to stirring the spaghetti, but she could see his movements were no longer smooth and casual. They were jerky, with the sauce splashing up the sides. Hey, Doreen said. You know what? If we don't go down this path, it's not an issue. You can't let fear determine what's right and wrong, he said. Maybe, she said. It was obvious Mac was still upset. He served dinner and scooped the sauce over the top, carried the plates to the outside table and sat down, but he never said a word. He just stared out at the garden. If you want, she said, I'll talk to your brother. His shoulders slightly eased as he looked down at his plate before lifting his head to study her face. If I want? She sighed. I should probably at least hear him out. You should, he said, because you don't know what he'll do to your old lawyer. She deserves everything she gets, Doreen said. And that's a separate issue entirely, Mac said. He's going after her on his own. Really? She looked at him in delight. Yes, because she crossed enough legal lines that he feels he needs to bring them to the attention of the board. Wow, she said with a smile. Your brother's got a lot of brimstone and fire in him. And he hates injustice, Mac said gently. Remember that. Okay. Let's shelve that discussion for another day and enjoy our spaghetti, she said as she attacked it with vigor. You didn't bring a spoon? She gave him a shamefaced look and said, I've been eating it without lately. He watched, fascinated, as she wrapped the noodles around on her fork, picked it up, put in her mouth, and then sucked up the rest of the noodles. That's how a lot of people eat it. You know that, right? She nodded. And that in itself was very freeing. I always had to have the spoon in order to make it look ladylike, she said with a laugh. So something is very satisfying about sticking it to my ex by deliberately not using a spoon. Mac chuckled. Now we're back to that you being you matter, whatever that quintessential you really is. I don't even know who she is, Doreen said sadly. I feel like I'm just starting to find out. Nothing wrong with that, he said. Enjoy the journey. And may it last forever. She stared at him in surprise and then smiled and said, That's one of the nicest things I've ever heard anybody say. He shrugged. I might not be as deep a thinker as some people, but I do have my moments. You can cook. That's worth a lot. Thank you, he said, almost humbly but with a big grin on his face.